Hello, my friends. Today, I kind of want to give an update on all of the things that you see happening right now in this particular hour in the world. And there are many things going on. Where the Lord has walked me a lot of in the last few weeks has been about faith and fear. And I know I produced several different videos about those two topics in particular. But we have to really understand what faith is by seeing a fruit of that faith. And if you don't know the fruit of faith, you don't know what it produces, it's hard to determine whether you have it or not, because everyone can say, well, you just need to have faith and it's going to be okay. And you say, okay, I have faith, I believe in the Lord, I know what's going on, and so on and so forth. And indeed, every man has faith in something. It's just what level is your faith in it? That's a very difficult question to answer for anybody if you do not know what the fruit of faith, what the main fruit of faith, when you go underneath everything else, there's one particular thing which shows your faith. And Jesus mentions this whenever he calms the storm. So we go to the gospel. And that day when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat, so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus, who was in the stern sleeping on a cushion, the disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" He got up and rebuked the wind and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." And then the wind died down and it was completely calm. He then said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" And they were terrified and they asked each other, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him." Apply this then to the world and to everything that you see happening in this particular hour. So Jesus rebukes the disciples for their lack of faith. And why does he know they have a lack of faith? Because they are afraid of the world. They're afraid of the things of the world. Their fear shows their lack of faith. They don't believe their God is watching out for them, looking out for them as they cross this water. Even they who walked and seized the miracles of God himself, they still feared the things of the world. Now later on we know they didn't fear the things of the world, for they willingly, most of them all went and were crucified or killed in one way or another, and willingly they received that fate. They know then that their faith was great. They didn't have the fear of that. But as they're walking with the Lord at this particular time, they still had fear. And this is very important for anyone who is walking with the Lord to understand, because during your walk you are with the Lord, you know the Lord is with you, you have your way of communicating with the Lord, you see the things he's showing you, but you still have fear of things. I had this fear truly for almost 4 years. Where was my faith at? Well, my faith was in the Lord, but he didn't work yet enough in me to produce the faith that one needs to walk as though they're entering into the lion's den and the lion will not eat them. You see, this is what is a fruit of faith. This is how you can quantify it. This is how you can see your level of faith underneath everything else in the most easiest to understand terms. By your fear, do you know your faith? Now we can look, for instance, to all of the watchmen and the prophets and all of these ones. You know exactly who I'm talking about. All the online ministries that the Lord has brought me against from the very beginning. They will tell you, "Oh, we're so excited. Look at this coming. Look at this earthquake. Look at this volcano. Look at this disease. Look at this rumor of a war. We're so excited to come." But then on the other aspect of it, a lot of them will say, "Well, you know, you need to go out there and buy gold, because if you don't buy gold, how are you going to weather the storm?" And when I hear things like this, when I hear somebody speaking the word of God, And then in the very next sentence, they promote something of the world. I just want to go over and kick their table of myself and say, look at what you have done to the house of God. You've turned it into a whore. And this is what that type does. And not every one of the prophets and the watchmen are this type. But God specifically has something against those types, which will tell you, have no fear, but go and buy gold. Have no fear, but make sure you stock up. And by the way, you can stock up by going to my website, blah, 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 and ordering from that all the things that you need. So what they're saying is just a complete contradiction of everything that they've spoken of. They're telling you don't have fear, be excited, the Lord is with you, but then they're telling you immediately, but he's not with you enough that he's going to provide these things that you need. Do you not know that God knows everything you need or ask before you do it? Before you ask it? So where is their faith if they're going to that route? They show who they are by their fruits. They themselves may say they're terrified, but they may say that they're full of faith and they're not terrified. But you can look at them and know by what they're saying and what they're doing that all they are is terrified. So they don't have faith. You can tell those ones don't have faith at all. But what about the crowd of watchmen in particular and the prophets? They constantly will say, the Lord is going to bring judgment. He's going to rain it down. The Lord is pouring it out right now over this people. We're excited, but oh my goodness, the world, all these things are happening. Look at this earthquake over here. Look at that volcano over there. The signs of the end. Oh my goodness, blah, 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 blah. They go on that path. And you can look at them because they all show themselves by face in front of the camera so that other men may worship them. You can look at them and understand that no matter what they're saying with the mind of Christ, you hear their heart being poured out, and they might as well just get out in front of the camera and say, we have no faith. We're terrified of these earthquakes and these volcanoes. Lord, who's going to hide us? Who is going to protect the wrath from coming upon us as they sit in their caves? That's that type of person spoken of in Revelation. Who can withstand the wrath of the Lamb as they sit in a cave and try to duck and cover? That's those type. The scripture gives you all types of all peoples, so we know them all based upon the word. And we can apply the word to a particular generation or a particular group of people. They are those ones written about in Revelation that hide in the caves, and they look up and say, Lord, please don't pour your wrath on me. And it's the same way as these disciples riding on the boat with Jesus did the same thing. They said, "How can he not save us from this world? Are we going to drown in the water? Is he really going to sit and let us die?" That's what they're saying. And truly, many of those watchmen and prophets, they will go on to be something greater in the kingdom of heaven. They will receive their faith, but they receive it in times of great trouble, which is not for the children of God and not for this time. The reward is going with the Lord to avoid the trouble. They go into the trouble believing they're going to avoid it because they've never looked at themselves, and then they end up finding faith just like the disciples, and they end up going to be crucified just like the disciples to receive their reward of their faith then. But for us, my friends, that's not the path that we're on. Right here with what I speak as a child of God, I speak of the better path, the reward of the faithful before the Lord comes as the Son of Man in his return. That's walking with the Spirit now. And that's avoiding all of those things that happen during the tribulations. And why? Well, because our faith grows enough before he comes. What good is us going into the tribulations then? How are we going to improve upon our faith when we're already not scared of the world or the things of the world? What are we going to test ourselves with? What would be the purpose of it? It's like somebody that takes a math test, and there's 10 questions on the math test. And all 10 of them are, what is the answer to 5 plus 5? Well, when you write 10 on each of those 10 questions, you get all 10 of them right. But then you say, well, teacher, this is the same question in all 10 of them. Why do I have to take 10 questions and answer 10 as the correct answer? They're all the same. What am I learning from that? And that's exactly how the Lord will say, you do not need to learn that because you already know what 5 plus 5 means before I come, because you have known me and you've known my kingdom before it gets here. So hence we don't have to go into the tribulations and answer the same, what is 5 plus 5? We're already walking 5 plus 5 right now. And though we still might say that the answer is 9, before the Son of Man comes, we will know for certain that 5 plus 5 equals 10, and anyone who is walking with him will go with him. That's the reward. Truly, some of those standing here will not taste death before the kingdom of God comes. That's us. We will not taste death before that kingdom arrives. As it is coming like a freight train. But a very simple thing that everybody overlooks in this generation because of fear, because they fear the things they speak about. They're not excited about it, they fear it. You can look at them and know this, that whatever they say, whenever they give you an update of a new volcano or a new hurricane or a new explosion or a new rumor of war, you can see they're terrified of it. And they prove it by their words, which shows their faith, which is very little right now for most all of them. So the original question that I brought up is, how can one determine where their level of faith is? And underneath every other thing that shows your faith by your works, inside, personally, by looking within, that's the only place you're going to find the answer of what your true faith is, by looking within. And that is knowing your level of fear of the things of the world. God already knows what we're walking into. He's already been there and done it. He already knows every step I'm going to take. He already knows every hair on my head. I can't tell God anything he already doesn't know of my life because he put me on the path of my life, just like he puts all the children on the path of whatever life he gives us. He gives us all of these things, and we walk paths. And if we accept Jesus, then we're on that path with him, and he does not lead us into a path that is not straight. That's how all of that goes on. We still have our choices, we still have our options, but he literally walks upon a path that's crooked, and he sweeps it up and cleans it off real quick before we get there to make it straight for us, because he intervenes on the world for our behalf. So we walk crooked. We're dumb as far as anything goes. We're not in the kingdom of heaven as it is there. We're on the kingdom of earth, which is ruled by the devil, and we're of God, not even of the world. We're like visiting on a visa. So he has to be the one. He's the only one that can intervene to make that path straight for us. We can't make it straight ourselves, and we walk crooked. But he covers it up. He straightens it out. And we walk with whatever life he lays out in front of us, because we know in our hearts we accept that and we desire that. So where is our fear? Well, as we walk on this crooked path trying to make it straight, the Lord does make it straight. And when we eventually arrive on the boat as a disciple just like this, if you arrived on that boat walking with the Spirit and you see the wind blowing, your answer to where your faith is that, am I terrified of this wind and the things of the world? Am I terrified of being in this volcano? Am I terrified of this earthquake? Am I terrified of this new disease? And only you can answer this in your own heart, and only you and God can understand that answer. For a long time, I was terrified of these things. Like I said, 4 years. But now every single thing is rolling off of my shoulders, because truly I have the faith, because God has given it to me. Because looking within and walking, you grow your faith by testing yourself. These things I can now look at and say, I do not have fear of it. I don't even have fear of it with my own children right now. Because if I flee from the devil will flee from me. And I pray to the Lord to keep the devil away from me and my family. Does he not already know I'm going to pray that before I say it? Has he not already made the path separate from the devil before I have prayed it. So hence my fear. It's gone away. I don't have any fear of the world. Anything that happens, I look at it objectively and I say, yes, that is the world. The world's a terrifying place. But you know what? I have something greater than the world on my side. I'm walking with the Lord. What in the world is greater than the Lord? What of this world can hurt me that is greater than what the Lord can deliver me from? And that's how one of faith walks. And you don't just develop this overnight. Believe me, you don't. The disciples didn't do it. I don't do it. You can't do it. Nobody develops this overnight. It comes by walking with God and seeing the results of his works every single day. And believe me, you're going to be quickened now because the time is quickened. If you decide that you're going to walk with God today, and you start walking with him and you throw all your idols away, you throw all your false teachers away, you say, God, just you and me, show me the answer. You look at yourself and you see the disgust that you have of yourself for being flesh. And then you'll walk with God and he'll quicken you because you got a lot less time than I had. God had 4 years to quicken me to this point, to grow my faith to this. He doesn't have that with you. According to the word, he doesn't have that. And he has to abide by his own word or else he's lawless. So he will quicken it for you, which is what I am sent into the field to do, to quicken. And how can I quicken? To show you where your level of faith is. By asking you the question, which only you can answer, is where is your level of fear at? This new virus, for instance, this coronavirus that they're calling it the Wuhan virus that come in China. China's already shut down all kind of stuff. They put on a quarantine in certain locations, quarantine the whole country for a recommended quarantine. They're all wearing their masks again. It killed 6 people out of 300, the first 300 that were diagnosed. You're looking at about, give or take, 2%, which is what influenza kills. I mean, it's nothing any different than that. If you're going to die of something, you're going to die of something, and that's just the world. That's just what the world is. It's happened since the beginning. It will happen until the day it's created new. Things happen in the world that take the lives of many, many people. For whatever that reason is, I know not. But what I do know is I can't speak for that person down the street, but I can speak for me. And since I am the head of the household, I can speak for my family. God is with us. He is on our side. So what do I have to fear of this disease? I have no fear of this disease. If it comes, it comes. If I get it, so be it, I get it. But what's going to happen? Is he going to take me from that? Whatever happens to me, it's in the hands of God. Does he give his children rotten gifts? No. Does he know my prayers and my thoughts before I say them? Yes. Do I expect him not to deliver me from something as common as a virus? This is what grows your faith, my friends. Understanding that God has the power to do all of these things that the world cannot. And if you fear it, if you truly in your heart have a deep fear of this, that should show you where your faith is. And ask the Lord to help you overcome the flesh that you fear by allowing the Lord to walk with you to overcome that flesh that you fear, the things of the world that you fear. Only God can overcome that in you because only he is Christ inside of you. Your flesh can't overcome that fear. My flesh, it's always going to be terrified of dying. It's always going to be terrified of getting sick. It's always going to be terrified of getting hurt. But my spirit is stronger than my flesh. My flesh is not willing, it is weak. But where there is weakness, where there is something that is not willing, there is Christ. And I have that as my faith always to look at and understand the things that God gives me in this world. He gives me for a reason so that I may learn of these things and grow my faith before he comes. He's coming in this generation. He's coming very, very quickly. We see it all playing out. All of the word is playing out. You know he's not lying. Where is your faith, my friends? Right now in the world, I am sure every Watchman channel, every prophet channel, every buyer and sellers channel, I'm sure every single one of them are talking about the virus. They're talking about the impeachment of Donald Trump. They're talking about LGBTQAFBG97486 people and how they're overtaking the world. They're talking about how there was an earthquake and some Spanish country last week. I'm sure all of these things are talking about all of this, how there was this gun rights thing in Virginia that the government shut it down and told you can't carry, breaking the Second Amendment, and people laid down and put their weapons down anyway. I'm sure that they're showing you all of these things, which the world talks about, the news talks about, so they get ratings and they get money because fear sells. Everybody, every flesh has fear, especially in this generation. All this generation walks with is fear. So that's all going to sell. Everybody wants to see the next pandemic news coming, so then they can be terrified of it, and the flesh be terrified, and then they walk terrified, so they make even worse decisions than if they ever knew about it in the first place. I'm sure everybody's talking about these things. But my friends, pay very close attention to those who speak of them. And if you see fear within them, they show their faith by that fear, which means they have very little if they are afraid of it. Whenever I see something happen in the world now, I understand the world's a dangerous place. There's nothing I can do about it. The world has been dangerous since the devil took it over in the beginning and come into the good seed and produced weeds. It's been like this since then. It's not going to change. That's why the world has to be built new, because it cannot change. Everything that happens under the sun will repeat under the sun. When you had a pandemic in 1918, you're going to have another one some point after that. All of these things happen. When you had a war, you're going to have another one. When you got a virus, you're going to have a new one. When you have an earthquake, there's going to be an even bigger one. All of these things happen in the world. You can't prevent them. But who can prevent them from happening to you and your family? God can and will protect you through everything that is thrown at you by the world that wants to kill you. By your faith are you protected. And by that faith does your conscience live in love and understanding instead of fear and tribulations. It's an honest question to ask yourself, every single person who will listen to me. What is my actual fear of the things of the world? If that fear overtakes you, if all of the people you listen to continue to ponder it as fear, 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 they sell it as fear, they tell you to get supplied, they tell you to get ready. Well, the Lord never said that you didn't need to get ready for something. They're going to keep telling you these things because they themselves fear it, and they themselves are trying to build the way out of it without Christ. What are we doing right now, my friends, those who are walking with the Lord? We're building our way out of it by His hands. We're building the Ark of Noah by His own hands. We're preparing that ark. While they're out buying and selling, and they're out getting married and partying and giving a marriage and all these other things, we're sitting at home with our hammers and our chisels and our nails and our boards, and we're building that ark because we know that God's coming. And we got to be on that ark whenever He comes. We're building it, laboring. And all of this is in our minds and in our spirit. Because that's what the Lord has likened this to. He's saying, you're going to build your ark not by your own hands. I'm going to build the ark by my own hands. But you're going to have to build it to get on it. And you're going to have to build it my way, which is by the Spirit until I come. And all that requires, my friends, is looking at yourself, seeing who and what you are and what you lack. Look within. And there, when you get to that point within, there you will see God. And then you will walk with God. And eventually all of these things and all of these people who have spread fear to you throughout all of the years of your life, eventually God will prove to you that even though there's all of these winds blowing over the earth, it will not move you, because he has already intervened to stop it from moving you. When you have faith like this, my friends, then you will know that your faith is godly faith, not of the world, and you will build the ark and escape all of those things the world is trying to prepare for by simply following God and meeting him in the air when he comes. Look at your faith, my friends, and look at it by your fear. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with God. And allow where you are weak, which is your flesh, allow Christ to intervene on that weakness and make it the strongest thing in the world. Only by his hands can he build that in you. God bless.